welcome to another episode of Public Opinion with your hosts, Pam and Benetta.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So, Benetta, how are you today?
I'm excellent. Excellent. The weather is beautiful today.
Oh, isn't it nice?
Yes, we had such crappy weather.
Okay, such a change from Mother's Day.
Okay, the snow, the weather phenomenon.
Okay, what a difference a week makes. But I'm excited to have our guest this week because this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's so important to talk about mental health awareness because people just really don't talk about it enough. And so I thought it was very important. We're coming off of the pandemic. A lot of people experienced a lot. You know, they experienced a lot of loss. Some people experienced just being lonely. You know, They couldn't go out. They couldn't be in touch with people. And then there were just people who already had mental health issues and it got even worse. You know, during the pandemic. So I think it's just important to continue to talk about mental health. And we have three very important guests this week who are going to be talking to us about the importance of keeping up our mental health and whether it's just as important to keep that up as it is your physical health. So
it definitely is. Like you said, so many people experienced so much during this pandemic. And I think I'm mentally healthy as a rule, but I know I felt a great deal of depression during this time.
Yeah. And you would normally consider yourself to be a pretty, like you said, pretty healthy mental.
Right. And I consider my demeanor to be upbeat and happy.
Yeah.
But my outlook on life really plummeted.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're going to get started and meet our guests for this week. First, we have Judy Jj Jackson. Judy is a licensed independent social worker, author, attorney, and magistrate. She is the author of The Anniversary and The Commemoration, both of which deal with mental health issues and the stigmas associated with them. Next, we have Dr. Tiffany Munford Dent. Dr. Dent is a licensed psychologist. She is the author of 4 books, Girls Got Issues, You Got This, Black Girl Unapologetically, and Reclaiming Me, Beginning My Journey to Overcoming Human Trafficking. And finally, we have Bryant Stone. Bryant is a clinical psychology PhD candidate with a concentration in happiness. So let's welcome our guests. Hello, everybody, and welcome back again. Welcome our guests. Thank you all so very much for coming on the show today. I'm very excited to see what they have to say about our public opinion question of the week.
It's a great one.
Yeah, it's important. I think it's a very important topic. It's an important discussion to have. So let's get started and see what that public opinion question is. Is maintaining one's mental health as important as maintaining physical health? And how can we overcome stigmas? All right, I'm gonna let Judy start because Judy is the lady of the group. So I'm gonna let
you're supposed to let age before beauty.
Oh, it's still age. So go ahead, Judy.
I think that your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And actually, if you don't have your mental health, you probably won't have good physical health. People who are dealing with really serious stress and serious mental health issues often have accompanying physical health issues like diabetes, high blood pressure. You know, you can have a stroke just because you're so stressed out. I think that your physical health and your mental health go hand in hand, one and one together. And it's really important that we work on trying to achieve good mental health, in particular in the times that we live in right now. You know, all of us are really stressed out because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, like today seems okay, and then tomorrow is a new mutation or war in Israel or something. It's always something. So I just think it's important that we achieve the best happiness we can. You know, I like to do a lot of fun things to be happy. One thing is I love to read. I love to write. I like to watch television, and I absolutely love music, and I love movies. and fishing. So I hope I answered the question.
Okay, Dr. Dent, I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer that question. Go ahead.
I think absolutely your mental and physical health are both important. I think at times we are more than willing to have the conversations about our physical health, in part because people can see that. People readily can see when you are suffering physically. Society has also prioritized and made it okay to have those conversations. But our mental health often is going to impact our physical well-being as well. For specifically Black people, most of the time when we're seeking services for our mental health, we're going to emergency rooms around physical concerns. We're having difficulty sleeping. We are having headaches. Our stomach is aching. So that mind-body connection is real. And I think that if we don't begin to recognize that our emotional health needs to be prioritized just as much as our physical health, it's going to show up. And when it comes to the stigma, that is that piece of it, is that society as a whole refuses to have this conversation. We can sit here and say, I have a headache, but we can't sit here and say, I'm depressed. We can sit and say, my stomach hurts. We can't say I'm anxious, because mental health and focusing on issues with our emotional wellness is looked at as some level of weakness over which you have total control, which is not the case. It's the same reason why we go to physicians to take care of our physical health. There's also experts who are there to help you take care of your emotional health, because it's not something that you should handle alone. And if we open that door to begin to say yes and normalize actual emotional well-being and mental health, and say, yeah, anxiety happens, stress happens. We're coming out of, not even out of yet, a year that has been ridiculously stressful for most of us. And to not have that conversation and fail to acknowledge it, it's going to show up somewhere. So I think everybody, I always say, deserves therapy. Everybody deserves to be able to have these conversations about their mental health. And everybody also needs to understand that they're so interconnected that failing to address one is going to show up with the other.
All right, Stone, go ahead. It's your turn to answer.
All right. So thank you again for having me, especially on a topic that I think is so important, and especially stigma. And again, to kind of build off of the previous answer, the times that we're living in. And I think the question of, is mental health more important than physical health? It's well-intentioned, but I do think it's built on a false premise. And that false premise is that they are separate things when they are actually the same thing. Mental health conditions are physical health conditions, but we have created as a society an arbitrary divide between mental health conditions and physical health conditions based on the primary symptoms. There are no mental health conditions that don't have a physical symptom. For example, people with depression experience fatigue, changes in appetite that lead to changes in weight, difficulty moving, difficulty concentrating. People with anxiety have a faster heart rate, they sweat, they get muscle tension, they get irritable. People who have panic attacks experience numbness in their limbs. All of these mental health conditions, or the ones that we're calling mental health conditions, have physical health symptoms to them. And vice versa, there's no physical health condition or things that we call physical health conditions without some sort of mental component. For example, people who get cancer also react to that cancer. They feel some type of way about getting that cancer, and they make changes in their life. Maybe it'll give them anxiety, maybe it'll give them depression. This applies to any physical health condition. Also, chronic pain. We know that the experience of pain is moderated by the perception of pain, and that if we change individuals' perception of pain, they actually experience a different pain than if they were just responding to it naturally. And so I don't think that they are separate things. And I think that, to go off the previous answer as well, individuals who are in poor physical health, experimentally and longitudinally, we see that they actually develop more mental health conditions, and vice versa. People with mental health conditions are at risk for developing more serious physical health conditions. And so I think the problem is that people think that the mind is some separate thing from the body, and that's just not the case. We know that emotions are physical. All emotions have some sort of physiological arousal with them, when you're sad, you feel slower when you're anxious, you feel tense when you're mad, you sweat more. All of these emotions are physical. And we can even take it a step further and see that there are actually brain differences between individuals who have certain mental health conditions and those who don't. For example, individuals with PTSD tend to have smaller hippocampuses than individuals without PTSD, and the hippocampus is the part of the brain that is responsible for learning fear. So I think that looking at mental health conditions as separate from physical health conditions is actually where the stigma comes from. And I think we need to shift our perspective on what mental health conditions are. As far as what we do about stigma, I think treating them as physical health conditions is a great place to start. I think that on an individual level, and anyone who's watching this show, if you are experiencing some sort of mental struggle right now, you think you might have some sort of mental illness, or you're just going through some tough times, I highly recommend that you reach out to a licensed mental health professional to speak about that's what's going on. Look up your symptoms, see what might be going on, inform yourself. There's a lot of disinformation out there on what mental health is. And
Okay, look at Stone. He is on a.
I have one more point.
Okay, but you're on the clinical role. Okay.
On like a societal level, as far as addressing the mental health stigma, I think we need to talk about it more. 1 in 3 people have a diagnosable mental health condition. And I think that we need to be more open about experiencing these mental health conditions. I am a therapist. I am also in therapy, and therapy has been a wonderful experience for me. And I think we need to talk more about what therapy is like.
Okay. But when you're feeling depressed, it's just like you may not be able to really put you're feeling like, I don't know, I just feel kind of, and you're just feeling like that. You're
and you think tomorrow I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to discern, is this depression a condition, or is it just based on the experience? Because it's really hard to determine that sometimes.
Yeah, it is. And I think most people have experienced some form of depression or something, but then for whatever reason, you're able to either work through it, snap yourself out of it, or you have other things that take your attention away from it. But I think the problem comes when you just don't know how to deal with it.
Right.
But then you may not know how to go about getting the proper help, because you may feel, you may feel like, well, people might say I'm crazy, or you don't want
to. And they do. That's why my book, remember, that's what I put in my book.
Yes.
On purpose.
Yes.
Because that is what people sometimes think. You're afraid that folks are going to judge you.
Right. Yeah. Or you don't want to be or you don't want to be labeled.
No one wants to label.
Yeah.
My husband lost both of his parents, and he was very grief stricken, but it transcended from grief to depression. And I don't think he knew when it made the leap, but he knew he wasn't getting better. And it took quite a while for him to go get help for that.
And I think the thing is that understanding that everybody has moments of anxiety, because that's extreme worry. Everybody has moments of stress. When we're going into the full mental health and diagnosis area, it's that point when those moments end up impacting your ability to function in other areas of your life, where it's not that I am experiencing very normal grief. Is normal. I mean, when you've lost someone that matters to you, to grieve that loss, to feel sad, to feel some level of emptiness is absolutely normal. The concern becomes when those resources, because in coping, we usually we're still doing stuff. I'm going to spend more time with my family when I'm grieving. I'm going to visit the grave and I'm going to talk about this person, and we're going to laugh and joke and share, focus on those memories. That is coping with that experience, with that moment of emotional concern. It's when we then find that that is not working, and that it's gone into this area of I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I'm more irritable, and it's messing up my relationships with other people because I'm withdrawing from the same people that I need to help me through this. That is that point in time where we have to say that it's okay to understand that I'm not getting through this on my own. Right. And that it's coming to a level of where it's really impacting my mental health and my day-to-day. And we have to also make space for people to feel that. I mean, I'll name it for people. I'll be like, it seems like you're anxious. I'm not anxious. If you're not, I'm surprised I would be. you know, or, you know, this would be difficult for me to deal with. And we have to also be those people that normalize mental health, that normalize struggles with emotional wellness. I've been telling people in this whole year that same thing. If you ain't struggling, if you've not had moments of depression, anxiety,
You're a
I am
robot.
surprised. Man,
Right.
man.
And it's
Because some of
okay.
the help ain't available to us right now either. Like you can't just go and hang out with your friends to
Right.
kind of help with this isolation. And so part of it is even in this year, letting people know experiencing anxiety, depression, all of that makes so much sense. And if you're not, are you not experiencing it, or have you told yourself that you're not permitted to do so? So we have to give permission for those conversations and for those feelings.
And it's interesting though that you say that, Bryant, that you look upon the mental and the physical as the same thing. And Judy and Stone, both of you all I call you him Stone, but
That's okay.
Bryant, I was just telling somebody yesterday, I said, if mental health is as important as everyone says it is, which I do believe it is, why is it that there are not regular mental health checkups right along with the physical checkups?
Right.
And I mean, right from when a child is able to even start verbalizing, because it seems to me that you would be able to catch things, you know, a lot
Earlier.
sooner, a lot earlier. And
We tend to wait until there's a problem.
right, we wait until there's a problem. And
Right.
so now, Judy, tell us a little bit about your background with the Adams Board and what you used to do with that. And can you answer or speak to that question that I just put forth?
Yes, I am, I'm sorry, I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in social work. I went to Case for my master's. I'm a licensed independent social worker with supervisory designation. And for 19 years, I was the client rights officer at the Adams Board, which is the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board of Cuyahoga County, where I was the person that advocated for people with mental health and drug and alcohol issues within our county. So if people were having problems with their mental health agency, with their adult care homes where they lived, or, you know, just pretty much issues, I was the person that basically represented them. And so that's one thing. So I'm sorry, Pam, what was your question again, dear?
My question was, why is it that they don't incorporate mental health checkups as part of regular physical health checkups?
They do. Oftentimes you'll see, they'll ask you questions. And oftentimes when you have children, they make your children go by themselves and they talk to them alone and ask them, how are you feeling? You know, is somebody hurting you? And they ask different things. They do an assessment on people often. And if you answer a certain way and trigger the assessment, that's when we may offer an intervention. But the problem, I think, is that there's a lot of stigma, like you said. It's a lot of stigma. People associate mental health issues with intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, when I worked at the Adams Board, I had so many professionals on my phone whispering because they were afraid that their coworkers might find out that they have bipolar disorder or they have an anxiety disorder. And, you know, in certain professions, if somebody found that out, they're afraid that they would lose their business because people would be like, you know, they associate your intelligence with this. And you know what? My favorite thing to say, one of our favorite statements at the Adams Board, we call bipolar disorder the CEO disease. Why? More people who are chief executive officers have bipolar disorder. Seriously. Maybe you wouldn't be as brilliant as you are if you didn't have it. We need to talk about this more. So these kind of conversations are important. It's May, it's Mental Health Awareness Month.
Right.
We really do. We need to make Mental Health Awareness Month, Mental Health Awareness Year, every year.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, because Bryant, like you were saying, I think that there is a big stigma, but people don't really understand a lot about the importance of understanding mental health.
True.
Yeah, and you talked about the stigmas as well.
It's a lot of stigmas, but let me go back to what JJ said. The one thing, like my doctor in my yearly checkup will say, well, how are you doing? How is everything at home? How are the children? But it's kind of cursory.
It's very cursory. The only thing they ask me is if I'm experiencing domestic violence.
Right.
And one time the doctor asked me that in front of my husband. I said, well, if I did have something, I wouldn't say it to you because he's sitting right here. I don't think that they do a whole lot. I mean, I know what you're saying, Judy, about asking the kids, and I'm gonna tell you, I don't recall them asking my kids anything. But I think that really, unless somebody notices something or a teacher, for the most part, it's like, and then like you said, people try to cover things up, and or if their child is exhibiting, so sometimes people feel embarrassed about it.
And they don't know where to go and what to do.
Can I just say one thing that's important is that they identify the children that they believe are having these issues. And then they're able to work with them in school, not even at home, in school. And I think that we're turning a corner, hopefully, of raising awareness about this. Is very important because you know what? When you have stigma, what you have is discrimination that leads to prejudice. So I'm gonna let Brian talk and then we'll go back to that.
Oh no, I'm agreeing with everything that you're saying, and I have a lot of respect for the position you've had. I know that it can be really hard to advocate for people, especially people who use substances, because there's a lot of stigma around that disorder in particular, because people don't understand that it is a disorder, and there's a lot of victim blaming and a lot of resources that should be given to people who have substance use disorders that are not given to them because of that stigma. I would say that substance use disorders are one of the worst disorders that have for stigma.
People view it as self-induced.
Oh yeah, well
They
you know
do.
on my docket at my job as a magistrate, it goes so much hand in hand. I have so many people on my docket who have case plans that include mental health, substance abuse, domestic violence, and I find that I think that they overlap. I don't know which. I don't know what. Right. I think for a lot of people, they self-medicate when they have mental health issues with substances. Right. And then with that, it leads to domestic violence, in the home. So it's just a whole lot of
it's a cyclic.
Right. It just goes in a cycle, I think.
My husband was on the Recovery Resources Board, and now my son is on there. And their big thing was that they were trying to change the terminology. When we say mental health, that puts you in a whole nother category versus health. It's
right.
Emergency.
Yes.
And you know what we love to say at the Adams Board is that mental health is healthcare too. Remember that. It's really not any difference. And you know what? And the question is, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of times, you know what? You have a lot of people who have mental illness, like you said, they use substances and then they develop, an issue. And then we have to try to figure out, is it the substance or is it the mental illness when it's really both?
Right.
And we need to be really careful. It's a lot of internal stigma.
And something that we are learning within clinical psychology is that context is really important in understanding the development and maintenance of mental health conditions. For example, individuals who have substance use disorders, in rat studies, we see that rats are more likely to use substance-related rewards when there aren't food or social activities or other playing things that they can play with around. And for people with depression, they tend to develop it, and we can actually treat it by increasing the pleasurable things that they do in their environment. So if somebody is impoverished and they don't have access to really nice food, really nice social events because they have to work all the time, or they can't afford to do things that are fun as much, it is not their fault, but they are more likely to develop a substance use condition or depression just because of their context. And I don't think people really understand how important that context actually is.
But that's true. I mean, if happiness is just an illusion to you, then I can see where you just want to escape. You don't know pure happiness. You know survival, but not happiness.
But I think something that Brian, you had mentioned once before was that happiness doesn't really have anything to do with what you have, right? It's what did you say before? What it was?
It's 50% genetic, about 10% circumstance, only about 10% circumstance, 40% the things that you do, the activities that you do, the rewards you get from those activities.
So you said 50% is just genetic, like,
Mhm.
so it's something to be said about people who say some people are just born happy. You know,
That's
they
me.
just are just happy.
That's another thing. People don't talk about the genetics of mental health conditions.
Yes.
PTSD, of all the disorders, is a genetic disorder. Individuals who have PTSD are more likely to give birth to children who have PTSD if they experience a traumatic event.
Oh,
So two
see, I get
individuals,
brings it out.
Yeah, because I
if
thought
they
it was
experience a traumatic event.
circumstance related.
So I can experience a traumatic event and you can experience a traumatic event, but if I don't have a genetic predisposition to PTSD, I'm not going to get it, but you will. People don't talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
agree.
that's, you know what, this is so fascinating. This is the reason why I just think that there should be a lot more. And I know they give you long lists of checkoffs when you
Right.
go to the doctor, but that, I think, like what you said, I think a lot more needs to be looked at, looking into your genetics, like asking questions like, do you have anybody in your family who
Right.
has this mental health issue? Do you know of that? You know, and maybe even give people tests when they come in. I don't know, but I
You
just
have to be careful though, Pam, with that, because I remember working with the young lady whose both sets of grandparents were schizophrenic and both parents were schizophrenic. And so some people feel if they have a genetic disposition like that, they're like, I'm going to be schizophrenic.
Mhm.
There's nothing I can do to escape these genes. And then they have this negative outlook on life. And I think that what Brian said is important about your genetics and about who you are. Like, I'm just a happy person.
Right.
I'm always happy.
And a lot of people who aren't in those awful positions treat those people as if the mental illness that they're experiencing is their fault, which just adds fuel to the fire, and it's really awful. I want a takeaway message. Again, anyone watching the show who's experiencing some sort of mental health condition, please seek out licensed professional help. We know how to treat a lot of these mental health conditions. They're very effective treatments, whether that is psychotherapy or medication. You don't have to suffer the way you've been suffering.
Let us rule out you're not having a physical issue.
Mhm.
If it's a mental issue, don't be ashamed. Don't feel bad. Just do what you need to do. Talk to somebody. There's a lot of people who will be willing to listen to you and will help you.
Mhm.
And don't have internal stigma. Don't stigmatize yourself.
Oh, yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Well, I appreciate the both of you taking your time to come out and talk to us. And thank you so very much. That was so good. It was so informative.
It was very helpful. I think people will really take away a lot from that.
Absolutely. And the takeaway that I get is obviously that is important to take care of your mental health as it is your physical health, and that there should not be stigmas. We have got to find a way to get rid of all of the stigmas that's associated with mental health, and just make people feel and understand that it's okay if you're feeling some way.
Difficult.
Yes,
It's difficult, but we
Yes.
definitely have to do that. We have to say to take care of your body is to take care of your mental health.
Absolutely. And if you need help, please seek help. We are going to put up some numbers. If you are feeling anxious, if you feel like you need to have some help, please take advantage of the information that we are going to provide. And thank you so much. If you enjoyed this segment, please like and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see ya for another episode of Public Opinion, because everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
Bye-bye.